ICE Subcommittee meeting is hereby called to order. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Cooper, absent. Commissioner Gill, absent. Commissioner Graham, absent. Commissioner Johnson, absent. Commissioner Luciano, absent. Commissioner Mercado,
Here.
Commissioner Siebold, absent. Commissioner Vice President Pomares,
Here.
Commissioner President Richardson.
Here.
I have before me certification from the clerk that this meeting is in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Again, good afternoon, everyone. I am Commissioner Robert Mercado. I'm the chair of the Public Safety ICE Subcommittee. I am joined by my subcommittee member, Commissioner Vice President Carlos Palmares, and unfortunately, Commissioner Rufus Johnson, who's the chair of the Public Safety Committee, will not be able to join us today due to a personal family matter. First, I would like to thank my commissioner colleagues that are on this call today, as well as our board counsel, Michael Paulovecchio and Francis McInerney, for their support and presence today. Additionally, I want to thank the county administrator, Robert Jackson, Chief of Staff, Phil Elijah, the director of the Essex County Correction Facility, Howard Ortiz, his staff, the vendors, and all the members of the public that have joined with us today. As a committee and as a board, we're here today to get an update from the administration on some of the changes at the Essex County Correctional Facility that have impacted the ICE contract. And we'd like to hear about the conditions of the facility, the care of the detainees, and the transition to depopulate the detainees. In addition to our commission board, we've invited the administration, partner vendors, as well as legal representatives who have a concerted interest in today's topics. For the public, anyone interested in speaking, you have that opportunity towards the end of the meeting, at which time you will have 3 minutes to speak, and the clerk will give you further instructions. At this time now, I'd like to turn over the floor to our president of the Commissioner Board, Wayne Richardson, who will give a statement. Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Mercado and VP Palmares, the administration, and everyone else for holding this meeting. Very important. So I have a couple of things I'd like to just present to the board for discussion. So as I am constantly getting emails asking when are we going to formally end the ICE contract, and if we will pass a resolution formally declaring that Essex County will not hold detainees for ICE in the future, and that we will not derive revenue from any facilities that detain people for ICE. So I would ask the committee a few things. To think about the issue of formally ending the ICE contract and to get a determination from legal counsel as to any risk or harm to the county so that we can consider both the negative and positive impact. Also, is the type of this type of resolution that some constituents are asking for necessary at this time? In light of pending legislation, Senate and Assembly bills that would effectively prohibit government agencies from any agreements to hold ICE detainees, what impact would county level legislation have? And how might it serve to support the state legislation? Now, I think in that case, we did pass a support resolution last week in support of the state and Assembly, Senate and Assembly bills. So that's already in effect. So there are legal as well as ethical issues, but I believe clarity from our legal authority is the best place to start. So I'm putting these ideas on the floor for thought and in-depth discussion after you've had time to consider these issues, not asking for for it to be, hashed out and done and, all commitments done tonight, but these things should be open for discussion. And that's what this committee is going to embark on. So let's have the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Richardson. At this time, I'd like to introduce the County Administrator, Robert Jackson, who will introduce his staff and guests, and then we'll address the 6 items on our agenda. Mr. Jackson, the items on the agenda, you need not go in any particular order, so long as that we are able to cover each of the items that I have provided. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to members of the Commission, Board of Commissioners who are on, thank you for attending and thank you for holding this meeting. We appreciate the opportunity to make you aware of what we think are the many good things happening at the facility, and with our administration of the ICE program winds down. I'm going to turn the agenda over to the director of the facility of our Department of Corrections, Mr. Ortiz, who will go through the items and introduce members of the staff as he goes through each one, Mr. Chairman, if that meets with your approval.
Absolutely, that's perfectly fine.
Thank you, sir. So, Mr. Ortiz, would you take over, please?
Thank you very much. Good early evening. It's my pleasure to be before you, through you, Mr. Mercado. Just a quick briefing. The state of the facility is safe and secure. We completed a facility-wide search, and as my other speakers will speak, they'll speak on various aspects of that and everything else that we're doing. But I'm going to start off with the item A, which is the ICE contract status. As of April 23rd, we served notice on ICE to give them 120 days. That would be August 23rd to depopulate and take their ICE detainees elsewhere. They are working on that. The numbers come down, not as fast as we was anticipating, but it's at 109 today. So it's coming down, but not as fast. With regard to a depopulation plan, right now, they haven't shared that with us, but they assure us that they are working on it, that by the 23rd, they'll be out, hopefully sooner than that. But at this time, I cannot honestly tell you that there is a plan afoot. They're working on it. The detainees themselves are, receiving everything that they need to receive up until that date. So with regard to that, unless anybody has any question with that, or maybe we'll do it at the end. I would like to go to item B, where Dr. Anisette, Medical Director Anisette, you're on, sir?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to speak upon our current status and where we've come from. I did see the larger point in terms of the theme was to focus on the vaccinations and the housing status and the general overall care. So maybe if I can start with COVID-19 just to try to bring everyone up to date. I know the commissioners have been following along with us from the beginning, and I believe it's been a very notable achievement on the part of the staff, all of them, from the county administration, the freeholders, the wardens, the director, and the medical staff, that we've gotten to this point. We went through the height of the pandemic. We did sustain one COVID-related mortality. That was unfortunate, but looking back, we definitely weathered that storm. We made a number of changes that are now permanent, or at least until we get through this crisis completely. We have changed our staffing. People are screened for COVID-19 right at the beginning of their booking into the facility. The officers are trained, and we have a pre-booking staff that's working right alongside the officers, and we do rapid testing. So within 15 minutes, we're able to determine if someone has contracted and been infected with the COVID-19 virus, and if so, we're able to house them in quarantine areas that have been designated by custody. And that methodology has been very effective in early detection, early quarantining, and we really have had very small, sporadic occurrences of COVID-19 within the facility using that formula, and we've stuck to that. We're continuing to do that. So that's an added staff that is there. Temperature taking, we now have automated. We used to have staff and personnel allotted to doing that, but now we have a very sophisticated automatic temperature monitor that can actually take pictures and send alerts when it hits certain temperatures, and that's sent to a number of people that are on this line in custody, including me. We also have the ability to do the more concrete confirmatory tests in-house. So at this point, we can do all levels of COVID-19 testing, COVID antibody, COVID antigen, and then also COVID PCR testing. In conjunction with the Essex County Department of Health, who I have to publicly acknowledge has been a steady partner in this. They've been able to help us in terms of sending staff, sending supplies, and sending vaccines, and even staff to administer vaccines alongside our medical staff. So up right now, just to give you an overview of our vaccination program, currently housed in the building, we have 422 people that are fully vaccinated. We've given out 827 total doses of vaccine, and thus far we've been able to fully immunize a total of 621 inmates. And that's with the concerted effort of the custody, who actually just recently put in an incentive program, in which they incentivized every inmate that got vaccinated, where they would get a $10 incentive into their commissary and be entered into a raffle. Just another demonstration of how committed this group and this team is to vaccination. So we've pushed that from the inmate level and also on the staffing level. We've had four events here on site where the staff could come in and get vaccinated. So we had officers, all levels of staff and vendors that are vaccinated in the building. We continue to mask in-house, and that policy has not gone away. There's a steady detail, and the custody folks can talk about that, but there is there's cleaning assignments around the clock. And as we've been moving along, we've developed partnerships with the hospital in terms of the infectious disease, so we're able to rapidly move patients to higher levels of care. And this has been a broad application. This is across all the levels of inmates, the county, federal, state, and immigration. So there's been no shortage in terms of approaching these folks. Our social service department has helped to put out the message through a number of measures to try to encourage folks that are hesitant to be vaccinated to go and at least explore and gain education and eventually be vaccinated. So we're doing that on a continuous basis. Daily, we get vaccines almost daily from the Department of Health. We do it sporadically when they have excess vaccine at the vaccination sites, and also with concerted efforts where we actually schedule dates to maybe vaccinate maybe 50 and at one point up to 100 people at one time. And that's as far as COVID-19 and vaccinations. When it comes to the chronic care, that has not been neglected. During 2020, we did launch our MAT program, which is our medication-assisted treatment program, where we're actually providing the same level of care in terms of substance abuse that you find in the community. So patients, they come in, they're suffering from the disease of addiction, they're identified, they're then placed under the care of physicians and mid-level practitioners who we've gotten so far 8 of our people to be certified to administer Suboxone. We've recruited a MAT coordinator. Our DON, our Director of Nursing, and our Health Service Administrator are well versed in this as well. And so they've been able to help guide the staff and train the staff so that right now we have 113 people currently right now that are on Suboxone treatment, and they're ready to be transitioned to the outside and be linked to care with 10 agencies that have decided to partner up with us through a number of efforts that have been spearheaded by the county. As far as getting visits and clinical visits and consultations, that has opened up a great deal. We brought a lot in-house, but now with the reopening and the reemergence of openings, we've been able to get our patients back into those clinics, the cardiology clinics, pulmonary clinics, needed surgeries, elective procedures that have been maybe waiting are now being put back on the schedule. So I think we've really gotten close to where we were before the pandemic, and in some ways we're maybe a little more enhanced in that we're using telemedicine and on-site consultations a lot more. And I'll just defer if anyone has questions at this point.
What we can do, Mr. Jackson, is that we'll go through the topics, and then at the end, then we'll open the floor to commissioner questions. Is that okay?
Very fine, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, if you don't mind, I'll continue on with the agenda. Facilities inspections, I'll take that one. In the last year, we've had state inspections where we did 100% again. That was for the year 2019, and we did it in January, so we all have the 2021 coming up before the end of the year. Okay, so that's a yearly thing. We also completed the Nakamoto group, which is an ICE inspection group, and they look at multiple hundreds of about 500 different categories of care for detainees principally. But obviously, when ICE is gone, we won't have that particular inspection any longer, along with ODO, which is another Office of Detention Oversight, which is another ICE inspection group. We also had that again, and we again exceeded all standards. We just finished recently, or not, we finished PREA, but before PREA, we had NCCAC, National Commission on Correctional Healthcare. We also exceeded every standard that we needed to survive and surpass, and we did that very well. But the report's not final, but the outcome at the debrief was that we were, and we anticipate that to be the case once we get the final report. We also had finally the PREA inspection, which is a Prison Rape Elimination Act. Obviously, when anybody claims any kind of sexual molestation or interaction that is unwarranted or not supposed to happen, we are obligated to investigate. We also exceeded that. The one that we have coming up is the creme de la creme of all accreditation, which is the American Correctional Association. That will be coming up early next year, and we anticipate doing well. Again, that's a 3-year accreditation, and we hope to go to New Orleans to pick up our certification, and that's always a good one to have in our hat. With that, we'll reserve all questions to the end. I would like to bring up the next item, item D, food service and kitchen upgrades. Regional Food Service Director Jennifer Lagenbach. Are you on, Jennifer?
I am on. Good afternoon, everyone. GD Correctional Services has had the pleasure of being with Essex County Correctional Facility since 2009. January 1st, 2021 started our new contract at ECCF. Since January, GD has made several changes to the main kitchen and cafeteria. In the cafeteria, 2 service lines have been replaced, a new flat grill, a double deep fryer, salad bar, a deli section, pizza oven has been in place, and an ice cream freezer. In the main kitchen, we have 8 new double ovens, 6 new double warmers, 2 new double door refrigerators, 2 new Hobart dishwashers. We converted an 1,800 square foot refrigerator into a freezer. 3 existing refrigerators had the condensers replaced on them. 3 tray lines and 8 double steam wells are on site and ready to go, meaning for that we are going to start in July. We're looking at the middle of July. We're going to start serving the food from the kitchen on a tray line. So currently right now we serve in bulk, we call it bulk feeding. So the pans of food go up in the pantries. Each pantry has their own steam table and kitchens, and it's served from there to the inmates and detainees now. starting in July, we will start doing the food down in the kitchen. So we will serve all the medical, the regular diets, the common fare, religious will be served in the trays, sent in the food carts, and directly sent up to the pods. Continuing our 3,000 calorie a day, 6-week cycle menu, we use halal certified meats to include sirloin beef burgers, halal certified all beef or chicken hot dogs, 16-ounce chicken leg quarters, which is one of our most popular items amongst all. That is served 3 times a week. A 7 p.m. snack, we still issue that 7 days a week to all. Following all religious meals, we and the several high holy days and Ramadan, we've concluded that. We had 850 Ramadan participants for that month. We ended it with an Eid feast. Some of the programs that we will continue to do, Serve Safe certificates, and also in 2020, over 450 food handler Serve Safe certificates were issued for all ICE detainees and inmates. And they could take that. That's good for 5 years for them, so they could take that wherever they go. If they ever work in a restaurant, they have that. We do a street eats program, so it's like a commissary program. They could order a hot meal, and that is delivered 2 times a week to their pods. We do a best recipe. We incorporate, each pod will come up with a recipe. We incorporate that in our 6-week cycle menu. And we also continue to teach them how to bake pizzas, muffins, cakes, and we give them certificates for that as well. And we'll continue that. And that's all.
Thank you, Jennifer. Moving forward, item E, social services, Deidre White.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to present on the Social Services Department. As Dr. Anisette mentioned, we also are educating the population on the benefits of the vaccination. We currently have 4 videos in both English and Spanish being displayed on every housing unit on a designated channel. In April was the month of Ramadan. In conjunction with food services, we coordinated Ramadan. It was very successful. We had approximately 672 Islamic participants participating in it. I often get calls from local residents who would like to make donations to the facility. This past Mother's Day, we had a local resident who donated flowers to the female population. She donated a bunch of bouquets, and we was able to distribute, the staff and social services was able to distribute a flower to each female at the facility. Since the pandemic, no inmates or detainees have been able to go out to pay their final respects at their family funeral services. So we're coordinating those viewing services via video. We have tablets at the facility that the inmate use for video visits. So we coordinate the visits. I collect the information from either the inmate, detainee, or the family member. I reach out to the funeral home to confirm that they're actually having services for the deceased individual. And then I send a notification out to administration. The inmate and or detainee is given at least 20 minutes to a half an hour to pay their final respects in a private area with their family members. To date, the department currently facilitates 21 psychosocial groups weekly. The department consists of 3 ombudsmen and 3 case managers / group facilitators. The ombudsmen, they're on the housing units. They're assigned housing units every day, assisting the population with their needs. Some of the needs consist of discharge planning, making referrals to local community providers, assistance with obtaining county IDs, birth certificates, social security cards. Lastly, I'm sorry, I mentioned the discharge plan. I was going to reiterate the discharge planning. That's pretty much my summation of the Social Services Department. Thank you.
Thank you, Deidre. We'll continue on with item F. Lori Nesso, Seton Hall. Hello, Lori.
Hi, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
I'm sorry, guys. I think before you get into the, if you have any more questions for I think the rest of the agenda are about the outside contractors. Do you want to ask questions for the administration? Carlos? Commissioner?
Good afternoon. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Elijah. Mr. Commissioner Mercado, if you want to, at this, I'm not sure if Mr. Elijah is asking us if we would like to ask questions of the administration at this time before we move on to the legal representation reports.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Commissioner Mercado and Commissioner Palmer. Yeah, I think now would be the appropriate time, and then I believe the rest of the agenda is outside the county facility individuals. So, but however, whatever you wish.
I have no problem in hearing and addressing the administration at this time, and so we'll entertain any questions for the administration staff now, and then we can also once the vendors are done, then we can ask the questions to them. So by all means, if any of the commissioners have a question for any of the staff, please advise.
Thank you, Chairman. I do have a question, a couple of questions. So one is a hypothetical. What happens if the ICE population is not completely empty come August 31st? What's the backup plan, and what happens to those potential folks who are left behind?
Can I answer that? The plan and the directive legally is they have 120, we have 120 day out. I would assume Courtney and we and our council will work together to figure out in the event that they're not out, but ICE has given us almost certainty that that would be enough time to get everyone out. So I guess we'll start dealing with that scenario, but we don't expect it. And what was the second? And first of all, I apologize for my casualness calling you by your first name. Sorry, Commissioner Mercado and Commissioner Palmer.
No
Through
problem.
you, Mr. Chair, just a reminder, when anyone speaks, to state their name every time they speak for the record.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Yes.
And what, Phil Elijah, what was your other question, Commissioner Richardson?
Well, I didn't get to it. So the second question is, so Director Ortiz mentioned the fact that if there are complaints or any complaints about molestation or any of those kinds of things, it's investigated. So my question is, who does the investigation? Is that a independent investigation, or is it done an internal investigation? Who does the investigation?
Alfaro Ortiz, Director, Essex County Jail. That is PREA, Prison Rape Elimination Act, which is a federal law. It starts off at the local level. If an individual claims some type of sexual impropriety, that is immediately investigated by both Internal Affairs, our criminal investigative branch of corrections, along with medical, and there's a whole protocol that must be followed to include taking that individual to University Hospital for the same nurse, sexual abuse nurse examiner, who will also do a mental health profile and a medical profile of the individual. And we always do that in conjunction with the Essex County Prosecutor's Office, which ultimately signs off on our findings or their continuation of an investigation should one be required.
So it's an internal investigation done by you guys or the people in the facility, and then so you're saying the prosecutor's office doesn't actually do their own their own independent investigation. They just rely on the information that they're given by you, and they either sign off on it. Did I hear you correctly?
Alfaro Ortiz, Director, Essex County Correctional Facility. No, sir. It starts off as an internal investigation because the complaint originates at the local level, but we incorporate the prosecutor's office at every step of the way. The same nurse is aligned with the prosecutor's office, so it's a dual. Now, we will present our findings in the negative or in the positive or in the conclusive, but they always has the final say as to whether it is a valid one or not. It is federal law, and we're following every step of the way of the federal mandate.
So my question is, here's my question. is the investigation, you said it's due there side by side. So are they in there asking prosecutor's office? Are they asking questions of the detainees and the potential officers or whomever who may be involved, or are they relying on the information that they're given? So are they doing an independent investigation, the prosecutor's office? Are they coming in and finding out for themselves what happened, or are they relying on the information that you guys give them? That's the question. I understand the government mandate and all of that, but that's not my question.
No, I understand. Alpha Ortiz, director of Essex County. It starts off as a local investigation, but we notified the prosecutor's office.
Director, what does that mean?
In a correctional facility, okay, I'll answer. We gather all the data, information, the initial interviews, reports, everything relevant to the accusation. And we gather the medical data, we investigate, and then we present it to the prosecutor's office that ultimately determines whether or not further investigation. Yeah, but they ultimately have the
So Elijah, let me just add some clarity to this.
Please.
So the Prison Rape Elimination Act is a federal law which very specifically details how any accusation has to be investigated, when and how the prosecutor gets involved, the nurses at hospitals and all that. So it was a very stringent law that was passed in order to alleviate the concerns that you may have, Wayne. It's not a policy or procedure that we put together or that the state put together. So, and we get audited every year to make sure that the prosecutor is brought in at the appropriate time, that the nurse at the hospital reviews every case, everything on paper. So we pass the audit with flying colors. Now, there are a lot of allegations that get investigated, and as Al said, the prosecutor's involved at every level. Remember, our IA unit is sworn professional standards unit, and I'm not going to speak for the prosecutor, but they take those reports very serious. So we are abiding by the PREA national standards that have only been recently set up in the last 5 to 10 years because of your concerns of things not being reported, and to really end this process. So the law is stringent, and we are abiding by that.
Okay, but in conclusion, it's an internal investigation by sworn officers.
Internal affairs, correct.
Internal affairs, which all of the officers are sworn. They all swear on oath. And that information is given to the prosecutor for review. So the prosecutor doesn't actually do any of the investigation. They just review the material and information given to them by the internal affairs unit and the nurses at the hospital. Do I have that correct?
Al, I would, unless I'm wrong, it's still Elijah. Al, yes. They review that, and when there is the need for them to investigate and interview, they do it. When the prosecutor makes a determination that they can rely on their nurse and the staff, and that they don't come in and interview. I think it's a case-by-case basis. But my answer would be they review everything.
And they will come and conduct further interviews if necessary.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a follow-up question to Commissioner President's questions?
Mr. Partivecchio, yes.
Okay. Director Ortiz, in the order of not just police investigators, but medical, you mentioned the sane nurse. Is the sane nurse on staff of the correctional facility, or is that somebody at another hospital or another medical area?
Alfaro Ortiz, Director, Essex County Jail. That same nurse is stationed at University Hospital, but they're attached with the prosecutor's office, the Essex County Prosecutor's Office.
Okay. Got it. I wasn't sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Polavecchio. Any other commissioners?
Yeah, Commissioner Mercado, if I may.
Commissioner Vice President Palmeris, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Ortiz, for lining up the staff. A good number of my questions were answered already through their presentations. I think it is important if you could, and I think this may be more medically directed, but from time to time, there have been some hunger strikes for some of the detainees protesting ICE policy and, pending punishment, if you will, deportation and such. Could you give us a better sense of what is exactly a hunger strike, in terms of the way it is defined? What medically may be done to ensure the safety of the detainees who have participated and then subsequently ended some of the hunger strikes? So I just want to ensure that their safety, of course, is paramount, so that they, what do we do in the event of a hunger strike and how do we monitor? Thank you.
Alfaro Ortiz, Director, Essex County Jail, and Dr. Anisette, jump in here at any time because there's a dual component. But if an individual, detainee, is determined that he is missing meals, immediately we start counting off and they are transferred to our infirmary. Once they hit the 9 meals, 3 days, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or a combination of them, as long as it's 9 consecutive meals, they're deemed to be hunger strike. That again, the medical protocol kicks in to weigh them, to monitor them, to determine the amount of fluids they're taking or not taking, and the food, if any. They're offered and it's documented that this individual refused or he ingested a certain amount or whatever he may have done. That individual is interviewed to determine what is the causation of that person's protest of a hunger strike. And it usually has been, and we've had upwards of 80 not that long ago, that individuals wanted to protest their deportation cases. In each of the recent cases, and there's hundreds of them now because, not hundreds, but close to 100, they were all against ICE, not against Essex County Correctional Facility. They had no problems with us. It's just that they were protesting the fact that they're not getting out enough, or they're pending a court case, or they're pending the Board of Appeals decision, and it wasn't fast enough for them. As of right now, today, we have 1 hunger striker. Dr. Anisette, myself, and Mr. Enriquez, we talked to, there was 2 yesterday, and we talked to him, and he was able to understand the process and with the aid of ICE to, what his particular case. So he did ingest calories yesterday, and he ate this morning and afternoon. We'll see what happens tonight. Hopefully he'll continue that. But there's another one who is kind of a little bit of a hardcore case, and he doesn't want to hear anything from anybody. All he wants is out, and therefore he's not going to eat until he's let out. That is, we've relayed that information to ICE, and we're trying to resolve that issue for him, but obviously we're not in control of that. Dr. Anisette, can you speak really quickly on what we do medically with that individual?
Absolutely. There is a distinction between the refusal to eat, which constitutes the first 9 missed meals, and then the transition over to a true hunger strike. And from a medical standpoint, it is complex in that this is a person who is basically waging a form of protest. So we do recognize that is the individual right of that person. But our aim through our protocol is to preserve life. And so once that failure to eat, which begins with the first 9 meals, we do try to quickly make the determination if there's a level of intervention that would help to cause that person to cease from continuing with the hunger strike. We involve the ICE officials right away. During that time, there's a lot of engagement with that individual, with our mental health department, to make sure that it's not a suicide attempt and that the person is not trying to create a situation where there's self-harm. After the 9th meal, that person is then transferred into the infirmary, where there is 24-hour RN nursing staffing and 16-hour physician staffing. They're getting weighed every shift, They're getting vital signs every shift. They're being offered food and hydration minimum 3 times a day, oftentimes more. We then also start trying to do what we did yesterday, which where we'll do one-on-one interventions with that person. We had 2 starting yesterday, and 1 actually did acquiesce and started drinking. We do also, and it's notable to know, because we've learned too, that you can drink water and still be considered a hunger striker. So a lot of times we're often trying to negotiate that point at least to try to get them to hydrate while they're continuing with the hunger strike. And usually within a couple of days, we're able to get them to relent and go back to eating, and we try to renegotiate with that individual to maintain their nutrition. Thus far, none of them have gotten to the point where they've been critically ill. We've had very few that have had to be hospitalized. As of New Year's Eve, we had quite a number, 80, and within a few days, we had 3. And so we've been very successful with the interventions and with honoring their protests while at the same time trying to preserve them. We have a pretty good partner in University Hospital in that they'll also do counseling, they'll do hydration, IV hydration, and we've been able to be very successful with sending patients that reach that level where they've missed several meals and they've gone into the 2nd week to go to university, and those interventions have been successful. And we stay in touch with their family, their attorneys, and try to basically put a full court press to try to get the person to eat and have their concerns voiced over to ICE.
Thank you, Director and Doctor. And just as a simple follow-up, what are the requirements or the threshold for considering the hunger strike over? I mean, if you missed 9 meals to consider it the hunger strike, what is it to end it? Is it simply 1 meal, or is it several meals consecutively to consider it the conclusion of that?
It's really based on, it's on a patient by patient basis. There is a danger in overfeeding that patient. There's a syndrome known as refeeding syndrome, where you can get a dangerous shift of electrolytes. So we don't force feed any of them or try to compel them to eat a certain number of meals to call off the strike. If someone's been on a hunger strike for a few days, let's say 1 or 2 days, and they break it, they can simply eat 1 meal, and then we'll follow along. And then if they continue a pattern of not eating, then we won't consider it the break of the hunger strike. So, like if we did have an individual who went and missed 30 meals. That person, we did not try to get them to eat 3 full meals. We gave them very small portions on purpose. We had them hospitalized. So it is variable, but usually our hunger strikes do not last too long, maybe 2 to 4 days at most, and we're able to get them to break it with 1 meal, and then we follow up to make sure that the next day they're eating, and that we continue it. And so even if they eat 1 meal and we say the fast is over, they can go and skip several meals, and we'll put them back on what's called the failure to eat status. So they can vacillate between those two. But fortunately, we have not had too many incidences that reflect that kind of activity.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor and Director. No more questions for me, Commissioner Mercado. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Dr. Aniceta, just a couple of questions. Have there been any deaths related to hunger strikes in our facility?
No. Sorry, no, none. Sorry, Dr. Anderson. No, none at all. We've had no serious issues with our hunger strikers over the last year or so. And as I said, most of them have a very short duration.
Thank you very much. Again, kudos to the staff who are able to talk to them and convince them to begin, the process of eating and getting back to their health. And so thank you so very much, Dr. Aniceta. I have another question just regarding the mental health of the detainees and the overall, population at the jail, but for today's purpose, just the detainees. What type of services are provided to those detainees that come in with mental health or psychiatric or psychological problems?
This is Dr. Anderson. We have a 21-point questionnaire that's part of our comprehensive review of systems when they come into the facility. So we do get early on a psychosocial profile on that patient, and we're able to determine if they're in urgent and emergent need of services. There are patients that do come in that are in crisis, and we do recognize that. So most days and up to about 7 p.m., we can get a mental health counselor to do an evaluation. If it's beyond that time period, then they'll have a licensed provider come in and provide some intervention, and then a referral to our mental health department, which is run by our psychologist, Dr. Fleming, and we also have our psychiatrist, Dr. Brazaitis, who's on staff. So we have our psychologist, our psychiatrist, and then we have our 4 master's prepared mental health counselors who are able to do counseling and referral. And we have a pretty good working relationship with our partner in mental health, which is the Beth Israel Crisis Center. We fall into their catchment area. So they'll send their crisis worker to the facility, and he'll do a one-on-one evaluation of patients that are in crisis. And we have a number of patients that are in our general population that are receiving the equivalent of outpatient services, where they get a monthly screen and medication adjustment. Sometimes it can happen more frequently, but at a minimum, that's a minimum, they'll be seen at least monthly.
And now that we're depopulating, right? And we have detainees that are in treatment, and some may be receiving medication for that treatment. When they transfer out, what happens with that treatment plan?
Dr. Anderson, prior to them being discharged, we're notified. We write up a transfer profile on that patient, detailing their clinical course and as well as their medication regimen. The county then will dispense a 2-week supply of the psychotropic medication and forward that along with that transfer form on the day of the discharge.
So Elijah, but again, that's one of the concerns is that, if they're going to another facility, if they're getting brought to another facility, whether in state, out of state, I can almost guarantee they're not getting the care and the medical attention that they would be getting at our facility. So that all depends on where they're going and how they decide to do their mental health there. So we can't answer what happens when they're out of our facility.
Right, and that's understandable. But I'm really you answered my next question, Doc, was do we give them a supply, and we do. So that's a very good practice, especially not knowing what's going to happen to them when they leave us. So thank you so much, Dr. Anisette, and again to all your staff. Thank you for the work that you do and the care that you provide to the detainees.
Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. I think the staff takes a lot of pride in providing care for these individuals.
Absolutely. I think, this year has been a very difficult year, and under the most difficult circumstances, while everyone was home in quarantine and staying away, we had those essential staff that went to work every day, provided the care. So I want to thank all of the staff at the facility for their service, for their care to the detainees throughout this year. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Jackson, now I'm not sure, Mr. Jackson, if you want to keep your folks on and move forward to our vendors, and so we can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think if I can ask Mr. Ortiz to stay on for a bit, because I don't know where the public comment issues will go. But I believe our county council is here to present the 3 legal representatives from Seton Hall, Rutgers, and Legal Services, respectively.
Ms. Gassion.
I think we're having trouble hearing you again, Courtney. Mr. Ortiz, you were going to do that. Well, I'll let you do that, Mr. Ortiz, if you don't mind.
Repeat that one more time, sir. I just, my phone just cut out a little bit.
The three legal representatives.
Okay.
Each one of them. Thank you.
Yes, not a problem. Alfaro Ortiz, Director, Essex County Jail. Lori Nestle, Seton Hall.
Yes, hi, Lori Nestle, Seton Hall. Thank you. So let's see, to start with, I guess during our last quarter report, which covered the period from January to March, at that time we had about 24 immigrants that we were representing at the Essex County facility. We currently have 18 detained immigrants that we are either providing full legal services or consulting with an eye towards being able to provide legal services. Our biggest concern are the transfers, and so far we've had, I believe, 3 transfers out of the facility. If it's okay, I actually have our managing attorney, Glikeria Teji, on the line as well, and she could speak a little bit more about those transfers, if that's okay.
Absolutely, that's perfectly fine. Please do.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Nestle. Good evening. This is Glikeria Teji, managing attorney of our detained project at Seton Hall Law. And as Professor Nestle mentioned, yes, we've had about 3 transfers, one of which was out of state to Florida, and it was actually a result of detainees being on hunger strike. And the other 2 were in different facilities in New Jersey. So one of the biggest concerns that we have as legal counsel is, of course, our ability to fulfill our ethical obligations to our clients. We need to ensure that we are able to reach them and consult with them and provide them the representation that we would if they were here in our state. So clearly it's something that we are struggling with, and it's a big challenge. It is less of an issue when the individual is transferred within the state, and more of an issue when they are transferred to states and jurisdictions that we are not familiar with. Of course, here they have the benefit of having great legal service providers who proffer this representation free of charge. And we are aware of the way that our immigration system works here. And to the contrary, we would be faced with many more challenges if those individuals if our clients were to be transferred in foreign jurisdictions where the law, at least the state level, is different. And we are also not familiar with the detention center facilities and their operations in the manner that we are here. For example, here we are, it is very easy for us to connect with our clients via phone or schedule phone calls or have legal visits with them, prepare for trial, etc. That would be more of a challenge when they are transferred out of state. So this is a bit of our experience. I'm happy to answer any questions, or I can let my colleagues also chime in.
Okay, unless anybody has any comment with regard to Seton Hall, we'll move on to Rutgers, Ms. Anju Gupta.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. I actually also have our managing attorney, Lena Khandwala, on the line. So if it's okay with you, I'll turn it over to her to give our similar report.
Yes, please do. Lena?
Hi, thank you, Anju, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lena Khandwala. I'm the managing attorney at the Rutgers Detained Project. And I would echo everything that was reported by by Professor Nessel and Glycaria Teji at Seton Hall. Just to give you a sense of our situation, Rutgers currently represents 17 clients who are detained at Essex, who are at different stages of their immigration court proceedings. We have about 6 clients who have pending cases before the Third Circuit. We have another 7 cases where there are pending appeals before the Board of Immigration Appeals, and we have 2 cases that are at the immigration court level, and about 2 cases that are nearing the end and where the clients are likely to be deported soon. However, we're deeply concerned about the transfers because for the reasons that Glycaria described, we have no information about where these clients may go. Every time that we have had a client be transferred in the past, it has been extremely prejudicial to our representation because we've had difficulty with access to the client. We've had difficulty with making sure that our clients' medical needs are taken care of. And as Phil mentioned, some of our clients have severe mental health needs and other medical needs. And each time that the transfer happens, there is a disruption in that process, and that not only affects obviously our clients, but the legal representation as well. Additionally, I'd like to say that even though some of our cases are not at the immigration court level, we are looking to have, those cases may be remanded back to immigration courts, and it is unclear, where those cases would be remanded back to if those clients are no longer detained in New Jersey. So there is a lot about the process that is unknown to us, and that causes us tremendous concern for our ability to continue representing these individuals.
Thank you very much. And Legal Services of New Jersey?
Hey, this is Rakiva Huck from Legal Services. Unfortunately, I'm not as well organized as my colleagues Anju and Lori. I didn't have our detention team supervisors, Rachel Salazar and Rebecca Hufstetter, on this call. But really, not much more to add. We also approximately have about, 20 clients remaining at Essex, and our big push has been, for all of them in various stages of their cases to get them released. Unfortunately, even with the, I guess you could say, in writing, the broad and discretionary provisions that from the top down have come for ICE to reconsider or release people, reconsider detaining or releasing people in detention. We haven't been successful with ICE on releasing most of our clients. So then our concerns obviously turn to transfers, because we don't expect that all of our clients' cases will be complete by August 23rd. So really the only point to add here is just speaking, all of us are advocates in the broader sense. So we are more professionally concerned certainly about our clients, but there's a concern for all of the folks who are still Essex being transferred. There's a good number of people who aren't represented by us. They're pro se at this point. They might have had private counsel before. Their cases are fairly advanced. There's some sort of motion or appeal pending. They might have a habeas or other release application pending, and they're doing that on their own, as best they can in their circumstances. And at least here in New Jersey, we can answer some questions, give some advice. If we have capacity that opens up, we can consider taking them on. But if they are, who knows where, they're going to be cut off from those, even that limited legal access as well. So it's a concern. We haven't been able to get anything concrete from ICE in terms of any official plan of where they're going to send people, if coming up with some sort of pre-notification process for both unrepresented people who might be transferred from Essex, as well as people who are not detained but might be residents of Essex County and other counties who are going to be picked up following a criminal encounter and then immediately sent abroad, so out of state. So those are our concerns, but happy, like everyone else, to answer any questions afterwards.
Through you, Mr. Chair, may I just make a suggestion.
Madam Clerk, please do.
You were speaking, some of you are speaking so softly, it's difficult to hear you. So if you can really speak loudly into the phone, that would be a good thing to do.
And can you hear me? This is Courtney Gassion, Essex County Council. Can you hear me now, Mr. Chair?
Yes, we do, Ms. Gassion.
Great. Okay, IT was able to assist me in getting my audio working, so I apologize, and I'm here if there's any questions.
No apology necessary. We hear you loud and clear now.
Great.
Okay, again, to the three vendors, I want to thank you for the work that you've done over the extent of this contract. And I do want to, I have a couple of questions, but I am going to first ask my commissioner colleagues, would they like to pose any questions to either of you? Commissioners?
Mr. Chair, could I just make say one thing before your colleagues get started?
Yes, Mr. Polavecchio, please.
Thank you. It's really for Commissioner President Richardson. Earlier today, I did have a conversation with County Council about the three providers and the contract extensions that the board recently provided for each of them, which added $75,000 to each and extended those contract terms through the end of September. Commissioner Richardson, I'm sorry I didn't send it to you as well. I just sent it to the three committee members. I didn't realize you would be here. But perhaps, Ms. Gassion, could you touch on that? What's happening with that $75,000 and what the administration is proposing for a spend down of that $75,000?
I can. Courtney Gassion, Essex County Council. So earlier today, I did circulate an email to the three providers just confirming that the county is willing, based on some of the concerns that were raised at last week's commissioners meeting, as well as some concerns raised by the providers themselves, as to the continuity of representation for the ICE detainees. As a result of those concerns, the county is now extended the time frame in which the three providers will have to expend any unexpended funds. So that would be inclusive of both the $75,000 that they've each been granted pursuant to the extension that was approved by the commissioners last Wednesday, as well as any unexpended funds from the previous year's contract that expires on June 30th. So whatever balance they have, plus the $75,000 we had originally stated, they would have until October 31st of this year to expend all of those funds, with the balance being returned to the county. The county has now indicated their willingness to go one step further and actually permit the three providers to expend their balances down to zero. Regardless of how long that may take, we expect it may take several months more, but that will then allow them to expend the full amount that they have left over, as opposed to returning any funds back to the county, which was part of the terms of the original agreement that we had reached. So this will give them some extra cushion as far as providing representation to their clients. And although their clients will no longer be housed after August 23rd at the Essex County Correctional Facility, they will have the opportunity to continue to represent them after they have left the facility, until such time as their funds have been completely expended.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gassion. I am extremely pleased, and I want to commend the county executive and the administration for going to the extent that it is going, and allowing for, one, the contract to be extended, and two, to provide additional dollars that they will spend down until the balance is zero. So thank you very much for that, and I think that will assist each of the vendors to continue to represent the clients as best they could, considering the circumstances that they're under. It's very difficult when we don't know where they're going to go, And the question that I had was, how does that legal representation transfer from Essex to wherever they go once they find out where they're going? I know in cases, we do know where they go. They may stay in New Jersey, but there are many cases that they go out of state, and then in some cases they, actually get deported. So I have any other questions? Commissioner Palmeris, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Commissioner Ricardo. Yes, I do. First, well, no question, but more of a statement. I want to echo your thoughts as well and thank Seton Hall, Rutgers, and Legal Services of New Jersey for their outstanding work. They've been excellent partners. I want to thank Ms. Gassion and Mr. Parlavecchio for helping us to navigate this specifically, and also grateful that the county executive and the administration has been as flexible as can be expected given these circumstances. I think allowing our partners the greatest amount of flexibility is the greatest tool that we can give them, because it is a bit uncertain and it's not going to be a uniform scenario for each detainee moving around and depending on where they may go. So I think that the best policy we can have is the greatest amount of flexibility and to be able to draw down those funds that we committed to zero, as opposed to returning any funds back. Just on a high level, and I don't know if this is for any of our three partners, Ms. Gassion or Mr. Parlavecchio, for some of the folks, the detainees who are already in circuit courts and pretty far into their case, is it likely that those cases are transferred, or do the courts generally proceed and would kind of dictate that ICE keep them nearby because they're so far into their case? Or would that likely, even if they're far down the road with their case, be transferred to another circuit court, or if you will?
Courtney Gassion, Essex County Council. I'm going to defer to the three partners and to let them, since they're the ones on the ground handling those cases, respond to that question.
Any of the Seton Hall Legal Services or Rutgers like to respond?
This is Akita Hunt from Legal Services. I can start the response. For cases that are at the initial appellate level at the board.
I'm sorry. Is it possible? You're coming in very, very low. I can barely hear you. I don't know if anyone else.
I think it's because I have the phone on speaker. Okay, let me try this. If that's better.
Much better. Thank you.
Services. That's good. Okay. So just to start the answer, it depends. I think sometimes on just where the case is in the process. But for example, if an appeal is pending with the Board of Immigration Appeals, then the client's location shouldn't change anything there. The BIA will still have jurisdiction. If there is a habeas petition pending at a district court or a circuit court, that's not my area of expertise. I believe that might potentially become moot or need to change. So I'm not sure if any of the others on the call may have better info on that.
Thank you very much. Any other vendor would like to respond, or?
Yes, I think that's right. I mean, I have the example of one case where we had a client who was detained in New Jersey and who was transferred to Miami at a Chrome Detention Center, and the case, the jurisdiction of the case did shift, and so we had to actually litigate a habeas for him in the 11th Circuit, which was very challenging for us, given that we have no familiarity with that circuit, and we had to figure out how to even appear in the district courts there because we are not admitted. So that it just as a single example proved, demonstrated to us the challenges of working with a client who does get transferred. But it is unclear what might happen if a habeas is already pending in the Third Circuit. I mean, there's also favorable case law in the Third Circuit that allows some of our clients to get bond hearings once they are
once they have been detained post order for a certain number of days. And that has been an important due process point for some of our clients that they might now be deprived of if they are transferred out of circuit. So there are sort of a variety of ways in which, from a legally, their cases might be impacted.
Can I ask the last caller just to put her name on the record, please?
I'm sorry, yes, it's Lina Khandwala from Rutgers Law School.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think that's, it's a hard question to ask, and I think that's what underscores the significance of the flexibility with the drawdown of the funds to zero, because there's going to be some unanticipated scenarios, and it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all solution. And the extension of the date, to a drawdown to zero, I think is, the critical point to stress here. So thank you all again. Thank you to the three providers and Ms. Gaston for your work on their. Working with them on the administration behalf.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Palmares. And again, Commissioner?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just want to chime in. I'm going to have to get off this call in the next couple of minutes. Just want to thank VP Palmares and you, Mr. Chairman, the administration, Director Ortiz, Dr. Anisette, everyone, Chief of Staff Elijah, everyone who had a part in this. This was very, very important and necessary to get this information out in terms of having this committee meeting, so that, transparency is very important. We need to let the people know what it is we're doing and when we're doing it, how it's being done. And that drawdown in terms of allowing our three legal vendors to spend all of the money is so very important. And I commend the administration for doing that. And I have to go, and I apologize. I know the public is going to be coming on, but I have to get off this meeting. But thank everyone for putting this together. And Mr. Chairman, again, thank you for having this committee meeting.
Thank you, President Richardson. Thank you for your leadership and your support. Okay, so just let's move on. If does anyone else have any comments they'd like to make, Mr. Padavecchio or?
No, Mr. Chair, I don't have any other questions. The ones I was considering were answered, and the one I did ask was answered in full. So I don't have any other questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. McInerney?
Mr. Chairman, the only thing which is not in the purview of this meeting would be some understanding of the budgetary impacts of these initiatives, which again, as I said, is something I would do outside of the purview of this committee, but certainly something that the board should be aware of.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And at this time, I've been participating with the administration on their stakeholder meetings that has been chaired by Chief Elijah, and they've been meeting monthly. Initially, it was twice a month, and then they went to monthly for the last over a year. And I have participated and witnessed the administration and the partner vendors engage in dialogue, and all focused on one common goal, was to improve the conditions for the detainees. And I just want to again thank the administration for their continued effort. Thank the vendors for their outstanding work in representing our clients under difficult circumstances. I appreciate all their efforts. And at this time, I'd like to open the floor for public comments. Madam Clerk? You're on mute.
Thank you. If you're calling in, the number is 855-756-7520. That's 855-756-7520. 7520 and use the password 74314#. That's 74314#. After entering the password, listen for the prompt to press 0 to be placed in the queue to speak during the meeting. You will be acknowledged to speak in the order that your call was received. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Leach to introduce the first callers, reminding you that you have 3 minutes to speak. Please do not have your laptop or any electronic devices on while calling in.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Our first caller is Brett Robinson. Brett Robertson, you are in the queue and you may speak now.
Good evening. My name is Brett Robertson. I'm a resident of South Orange in Essex County. I want to speak tonight on the moral imperative for Essex County to do everything in their power to support ICE detainees and move to definitively end all collaboration with ICE. It's truly unfortunate that Essex County ever made the decision to collaborate with the reprehensible and repressive ICE agency, facilitating their senseless persecution of immigrants. Essex County generally prides itself on progressive ideals and inclusive community, not cynical money-making from deals with the devil to scapegoat our neighbors. However, that decision was made. And now it seems that Essex County may finally be seeing the error of its ways and is moving towards ending ICE detention in the county. It is critically important that Essex County owns the consequences of its past poor decisions. When Essex decided to profit from ICE incarceration, it took on the moral responsibility for protecting incarcerated individuals. Essex cannot simply wash its hands of the issue, but rather must do everything in its power to help right its wrongs. ICE detainees must not simply be shuttled to another facility in another county or another state. Instead, I call on the Essex County Commissioners to do everything in their power to push for releases instead of transfers for ICE detainees. I request that the Commissioners report in detail all of the steps they plan to take to advocate for ICE detainees, including who will be contacted by the Commissioners, and that the public be provided a copy of any and all written communications advocating for releases instead of transfers. I further call on Essex to commit to funding adequate legal and social support for an indefinite period for any and all ICE detainees who have spent any time incarcerated in Essex County. I ask that the Commissioners provide a detailed accounting of the number of current and past ICE detainees and its plans, including dedicated funding to continue to support these individuals. Finally, I urge Essex County to end its ICE contract immediately. Maintaining the contract now would demonstrate extraordinary cynicism by the Commissioners. It would indicate that Essex is merely pausing ICE collaboration, perhaps hoping that the current controversies around ICE will die down so that it can get back to profiting from the persecution of immigrants in the future. I want to clarify, earlier tonight, Commissioner Richardson asked whether Essex needs to take action considering the bill pending at the state level. So just to clarify, A5207, S3361, these bills do nothing to end existing contracts. They merely have limit the ability to make new contracts. So it is still imperative that Essex acts now to end ICE contracts. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Leach, I believe he's completed his call.
Thank you. The next caller is Jay Arena. Jay Arena, you are now able to speak. You will have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Jay Arena, and I'm from Newark, New Jersey. And I direct my question and comment to the commissioner from Newark, from the North and East Ward, and the chair of this committee, Robert Mercado. Now, Mr. Mercado, you're a trained social worker, certified. You have said that you're in the helping profession. It's something I enjoy doing. Well, if we're to take that serious, you need to move, and you've been very quiet over the several years of this long, grassroots movement to close your ICE concentration camp. But you have been very quiet the whole time, and you're also very close, the closest actually of all the commissioners to deportation Joe DiVincenzo. You said that you've been fortunate to learn watching Joe DiVincenzo do his job throughout the years, like running the ICE concentration camp. So you've got to really make a decision. Are you going to continue with watching and following deportation Joe, or are you going to live up to your words of being a good social worker, of enjoy doing something good? So if you're going to do something good, Mr. Mercado, you need to have some political independence from your mentor, and one, demand that this contract close. I did not hear a response to Board President Richardson's question about when is this going to end. You've paused it. And as the other speaker, the previous speaker just said, if this movement dies down, then deportation Joe will immediately start it up again. That's why they paused it. So one, when are you, Mr. Mercado, Mr. Social Worker, committed to doing good, who in fact works with ex-offenders, when are you going to stand up to your mentor and demand that this contract end, and use the power that you have as part of the board? So I really do want to hear a response to that question. And also, as the previous speaker spoke, we need to have the current detainees released, not moved to other parts of the concentration camp system.
You have 30 seconds.
So let me wrap up. The question is, which side are you on, Mr. Mercado? The side of social work, which you're that you're committed to, or are you going with your political mentor who's run this atrocious, abominable ICE concentration camp system for over a decade to raise his blood money?
Time is up.
Which side are you on?
Thank you. As been our practice, all answers will be responded to in writing. Mr. Leach?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next caller is Mr. Stevens. Mr. Stevens, you are now allowed to speak. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Elijah Stevens. I would like to speak on the need to immediately end this ICE contract, not just depopulate the jail with ICE detainees, and also the need to actually address this process in a way that benefits the people who are being impacted by any decisions regarding the ICE contract, whether that is depopulation or termination of the contract. So a few things. I think there's a huge lack of clarity around what it is that you are all are doing. When this decision to depopulate was first announced, there were press releases put out that contradicted each other. One and messaging, I believe at the time that Wayne Richardson put out that said that the contract was being ended. We know now that that has not happened, and there does not seem to be any plans to end the contract. So there is huge lack of clarity. Even Phil Elijah, you said in an email as recently as June 9th that your contract with ICE ends on August 23rd. That is incorrect. So will you clarify that the contract has not been terminated and will not be terminated, and or will you make a commitment here and now to terminate your contract with ICE? Additionally, Phil Elijah has said that the contract with ICE is public, but the public has not been able to see that contract. It is not posted anywhere, and FOIA requests, Oprah requests have not been answered. So I'm asking, will that the contract with ICE be shared with the public, and will all communications between the county executive, the jail, and the commissioners with ICE regarding the depopulation and the contract
30
be
seconds.
shared with the public. Finally, the amount of funding provided to legal representation based on the millions and millions of dollars that you've made from this contract is tiny, is less than 2%. So if you actually are worried about transfers to other states, will you commit to further funding for legal services and bond funds so that people can actually be
Your
released?
time is up. Thank you. And as our practice, your questions will be responded to in writing. Mr. Leach.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next call will be Mr. Strube. Mr. Strube, you have 3 minutes to speak. You are allowed to speak now. Thank you.
Sure. Hello. My name is Whitney Strube. I'm a resident of Newark, New Jersey, and a member of North Jersey DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. And I'll just pick right up where the last speaker, Elijah, left off on the demands for more funding and more money. I also think it's imperative that you do actually end the ICE contract, which you've said you were doing and have not, which is critically important. But right now, the most urgent push is for money. Commissioner Mercado, I met with you in your office in 2019 with Abez Kazi and Mary Rizzo. You may remember this conversation. Your own language was that the money for legal representation was a drop in the bucket. That's a verbatim quote from you regarding the money that Essex County was delegating to legal representation compared to the money it took from ICE. It was a drop in the bucket then, and it's a drop in the bucket now. What we need to do is have a robust funding that will cover everyone who is held there, everyone who is transferred, and everyone who is detained in the future from Essex County. That is literally the least you can do if you have any concern for cleaning the moral stain on Essex County and on yourselves that this decade-long collaboration with ICE has left. Another speaker mentioned that you can't just wash your hands and walk away from this. You've taken tens of millions of dollars from ICE. You've facilitated the racist Trump administration. You've facilitated ICE's racist war on the working class, on people of color, and on immigrants, and you absolutely need to do more. What you're doing right now is woefully insufficient. Although I acknowledge you are taking steps. I don't want to fail to acknowledge that because, it is something, but it needs to be more. And so, again, I've said this before at meetings, I've said this for years, but we have a chance in Essex County to set a national precedent for justice here. The eyes of the country are watching. Groups like Detention Watch Network, groups like Freedom for Immigrants that have worked in California, in Florida, elsewhere. We are going to be an historical case study in how ICE contracts ends. And you can do it dirty, let people get transferred, spend very little money, and walk away from it. Or we can do something here that becomes a national model for justice. And with whatever time I have remaining, I urge you to take the path of justice. It seems to me like a lot of you here actually do seem to care, and you do seem to want to do the right thing. But that's going to take a little effort, and it's going to take money. So, all I can do is urge you from the bottom of my heart, as a resident, as a constituent, as somebody deeply engaged with this issue, to pour money into this, to work with advocates and lawyers even more than you already are. And, let's do this right. Thank you. The end.
Thank you. As our practice, your questions will be answered in writing. Mr. Leach.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'm sorry. The next caller is Ms. Kathy O'Leary. Ms. O'Leary, you have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Kathy O'Leary, and I'm the New Jersey Region Coordinator for Pax Christi. I've spoken before the commissioners for many, many, many years. I just want to clarify something first off. A5207 S3361 has not been passed. In fact, S3361 at the moment is stalled in the Senate and may not pass before summer recess if things go as they are right now. These bills will keep Essex from extending its ICE contract past 2026 when it is supposed to end, but it will not end the current contract. In addition, the current contract as it stands, allows Essex to generate revenue from any ICE detainees who may be sent to Delaney Hall. And that is one of the facilities that is open to ICE currently to transfer people to. As far as we know, they haven't yet. And that would be one of my questions as to whether or not you have any information with regard to anyone who's currently been transferred to Delaney Hall, or whether or not anyone will be transferred to Delaney Hall. And if in fact there is no desire to ever incarcerate people for ICE, as Director Ortiz has stated, why is the county not ending the contract? There is, if there is no desire on the part of the commissioners, the executive, or the director of corrections to incarcerate anyone for ICE, then why is the contract remaining open? Essex County has benefited financially for over a decade, while families in Essex County and elsewhere in New Jersey were separated and suffered both emotionally, physically, and financially. So I'm very happy that you're extending this, the money for the legal fees, but what will you do with regard to make reparations for these families who have suffered, like I said, emotionally and financially? The legal fees absolutely is not enough. And to paraphrase my colleague Wittstrup on the fact you are not yet on the path to justice, not simply because of the issue that you haven't ended the contract,
you
but
have
also
30
because
seconds.
you have ended the contract by simply incarcerating another set of Black and brown bodies for profit. So as long as you are in the business of corrections and profiting from the incarceration of people, you will not be on the path to justice. And we will continue to see the types of abuses that we have seen for more than a decade. And the ICE contract, it simply illuminated the poor conditions,
Your time is up.
the miserably poor conditions that exist in your jail. Thank you.
Thank you. As our practice, your questions will be answered in writing. Mr. Leach.
Madam Clerk, there are no further phone calls in the queue.
Okay. Mr. Chair, our public comment session is now ended.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. At this time, I would just like to state that as our President Richardson mentioned earlier in his remarks, I was proud to join my colleagues in support of the resolution prohibiting state and local entities from entering in any agreements with federal immigration authorities to detain non-citizens. And again, I want to thank everyone on the call today. It's been a very informative meeting. We're here to listen to each other and learn about what the state of affairs is in our correctional facilities as it pertains to our ICE detainees. I want to thank the administration, the representatives from Rutgers, Legal Services of New Jersey, and Seton Hall Law School, as well as all of the staff from the facility. And again, special thanks and special kudos to all of the essential staff at the facility who work day in and day out to provide the necessary and critical care that our detainees require.
Mr. Chair?
Madam Clerk.
I just been informed that we have another caller who's called in, another individual. Would you like to accept that caller?
Yes, Madam Clerk, we'll take that call.
Mr.
Madam
Leach.
Clerk, Madam Clerk, if you would just wait, just hold 1 second, please, so I can transfer that person over. If the individual can please state your name for the record, please. You have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name for the record.
Tania Matos.
And one last thing, can you spell your last name, please, for the record?
MATTOS.
Thank you.
You may be.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tanya Matos, and I work with Freedom for Immigrants. I'm the Northeast Policy and Monitoring Manager, and I am an individual who submitted a PREA complaint on behalf of an individual who was held at Essex County Jail and was then transferred to Batavia Federal Prison. I want to emphasize that I am working on two more PREA complaints coming out of Essex County Jail. And so I will be submitting that in the next couple of weeks. So these are two other individuals, one who has already been deported, but wants to make sure that the guards are held accountable. I know that you are depopulating, and I really hope that you are able to formally end the contract so that no more people have to go through the situation that these individuals have gone through. But I'm here to say that the guards are dangerous, and because you're depopulating, it doesn't mean that these guards will not do the same to the other people that are inside of these facilities. And so I demand an investigation on what is happening in this detention center. And these are very serious matters of sexual assault happening. And I'm also here to encourage you to please push for individual releases and not just transfers. Transfers to detention centers across the state, to New York or other facilities in New Jersey. We really would want you to make a concerted effort to reach out to the Newark field office and to Senators Booker and Menendez to make sure that they hear from you, from U.S. commissioners, U.S. folks that have been involved in this fight for a long time and know about these contracts and know about this facility. We really want you to do that. The folks inside go on hunger strike, not because if they have nothing else to do, they literally have no other way of getting their point across to say that they want to be released, that the conditions are so bad and so horrendous in this facility, and the guards are so brutal that they rather starve and make their point via that way. So I encourage you to please investigate these guards because they are very dangerous to the population inside.
As our practice, your questions will be answered in writing. Mr. Chair, I've been informed that we have an additional caller. May we proceed?
Madam Clerk, I will take this last caller.
All right, Mr. Leach, this will be our last caller, and that will complete our public comment session for this meeting.
Madam Clerk, there are no other callers.
Oh, okay. So I'm sorry for that miscommunication, Mr. Chair. It is now complete.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And finally, let me end by thanking you and your staff, Deputy Clerk Deborah Marvell, Lionel Leach, and the rest of the folks that work behind the scenes to allow us to provide this forum and for this meeting to take place. So once again, thank you very much. And at this time, the meeting of the Public Safety ICE Subcommittee is now adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a good day.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.